Guys, we brought you damn good beer, and now we're delivering you damn good beef. Hassel Cattle Company is the absolute best source for farm-to-table Wagyu beef in the country. Hassel Cattle Company is a fourth-generation cattle farm out of Texas. They ship all over the US of A and straight to your door. They call their beef the blue-collar Wagyu. Why? Because it's the best damn Wagyu that every man or woman can afford. Hassel Cattle offers Wagyu smoked sausages. Those are amazing. New York strip, also amazing. Beef bacon, really amazing. Wagyu franks, 2 jerky flavors, and their original sweet and spicy. Their hamburger won Food Network's Northeast Burger Jam. Not only do we love their beef, but the country loves their beef. These guys are registered bulls and breeds them Angus cows, giving that very high prime product that is grown with 0 antibiotics. So check them out, HassellCattleCompany.com. That's HASSELL cattlecompany.com, and use the code DNVR10 for 10% off your order.
Number one for the one and only DNVR. 2 goes out to Zach, Mace, RK, and the bar. 3 for Mr. B in that old trophy case. Number 4 we're still waiting for. Well, bring on the chase. Out on the field, a mile high, Broncos win is our desire. Couple with a breakfast crew and a friend played orange and blue to the bitter end. Come and join us at the DNVR. We are DNVR.
Welcome in to the DNVR Broncos podcast, presented by MSU Denver Online. You can transfer in and out of MSU Denver painlessly when they have high-quality education to help you have a better future. MSU Denver students work twice as many hours as students attending any other Colorado institution, so you can keep that full-time job while you do your education, further that education, get a better job later, get a better degree, and set yourself up for the future. So check them out, msudenver.edu/online.
My boys, what's up? Happy first day of post John Elway as the GM.
Yeah, crazy day in Broncos country yesterday, and no one saw it coming. That's the craziest part to me, is that, as far as I know, usually I hear the rumblings. I didn't hear any rumblings about this. So maybe I was just unplugged, but this was really quiet. And I think that kind of shows you that John Elway wasn't 100% sure on what he wanted to do on this for a while, which is why it wasn't leaking out. But just a crazy day yesterday, and of course we did the emergency podcast, but then we had a long time to talk to John Elway about this decision. So I wanted to start there with you guys. Just, Mace, what were some of your takeaways from John Elway meeting with the media?
Well, first of all, just kind of talking about how they kept this a secret. According to Mike Kliss's story, he talked with Matt Russell. They didn't talk about it until during the Ohio State-Clemson game. Now, the story is interesting. It says Saturday, but that game was Friday. And so if Matt Russell didn't know about it till then, that shows you it was a limited core of people that knew about this before the weekend. And I think that's why they were able to keep a lid on it. But the things that sort of jump out is, first of all, whatever this arrangement is going to be, however much John Elway is going to be around, it doesn't feel like it's going to last very long. It seems to me like this is a 1-year thing because he has 1 more year left on his contract. So you give him the president title while he's still got another year of big money coming in. And yeah, maybe he could stay around as some kind of senior consultant or something like that. But you get the feeling that it's, even though Elway's shadow is still going to loom to some degree, certainly not the way it did when he retired from playing, that he's probably going to step away from the most part and let the new GM do their thing. And mainly because I think John wants to experience different aspects of life. Talked about being a grandfather. Talked about his age. You referred back to that multiple times. I think this is just a lifestyle change. It's reflecting on what he accomplished and basically realizing, okay, I've been a GM, I've been a player, I've even been a president of an arena league team, and I climbed the mountain and hit the peak every single time. What's the point of chasing more? It's time to live. It's time to live my life.
Yeah, and that's my biggest takeaway from talking to John yesterday, guys, is that he really is going to take a big step back. And this is the sweetest gig that you can get, being the president of football operations for a team. Bring in your own GM that you get to have an input on hiring. And then, hey, whether you're in the building and a big decision's coming down, whether you're on the golf course, whether you're hanging out with your 7th grandchild that was just born yesterday, they'll give you a call. And then you can say, oh, yeah, you should hire this guy. You should sign this guy. I don't think you should do that. And then also, then everything's not on his shoulders, and not just in the building when it comes to work, but all the blame isn't on his shoulders. And he's had a lot of that these past 5 years. And he should be. Yesterday, he said he's proud of what he's done as GM with the Broncos. He should be. He should be proud of what he's done with the Denver Broncos organization. And now he gets to take a step back and really have the best job in the world.
Yeah, this is a good gig for him. Mace, you mentioned he gets to collect the last year of that salary, which is, I think, the best part of the gig. And I also, that was my biggest takeaway. When this news first came down, I think everyone's first reaction is, okay, yeah, but this isn't going to change anything. It'll just be a figurehead who comes in to be the GM while John Elway pulls the strings. After yesterday and talking to John Elway, my opinion completely changed. And of course he said that because that's the message they want out there, but it's about whether or not you believe him. And I actually did. I believed everything he had to say about wanting to step away from the day-to-day roles. What really stood out to me is he was asked, what are you going to miss about the day-to-day grind? And before stopping himself, he was going to say nothing. At least that's what I thought he was going to say. He kind of grabbed himself there and said, well, I guess I'll have to wait and find out when I'm not doing it, what I miss. But he laughed at the question because I just think right now he doesn't like the day-to-day grind. Yeah. That's okay. He's 60 years old. Football has been a part of his life every single day for God knows how many years now. Over 40, probably 50 years, it's been a part of his day a part of his life every day. And so I think it is understandable for him to want to step away a little bit. The losing has to take a real tax on a competitor like that. And I do think he'll want to be involved, and I think he'll want to be involved long term. I just think the amount of work that he does and the role that he holds will just keep getting smaller. I think you'll get him being, in this president role for next year, and then I think, you said the word senior consultant. I think John Elway, I think it would be important for him that if the Broncos win a Super Bowl in the next 5-10 years, that he can still say, he was involved in one way or another. And he can say his fingerprints are on every Lombardi trophy in the building. I think that's something that's important to him. But I don't think he's going to be involved day to day. In fact, I don't expect him to even be at Broncos headquarters very often at all.
Yeah, I don't either. I think it may be something where he misses game day. And remember how years ago Peyton Manning talked about he was going to miss the flights home after wins when he retired from playing? I think he'll miss stuff like that. He'll miss the camaraderie. I mean, it's kind of appropriate in some ways that Matt Russell is going out at the same time as he is, because I think one of the things that he'll miss is having a right-hand man who was such a good friend, someone that not only he could talk about players and talk and work with, but also just enjoy a dinner with. I don't think that's going to go away. And I think he'll miss the thrill of the chase in free agency. That feeling, we wanted this guy, we got him, reeling in the big fish. I think he'll miss that feeling. And I think he'll miss the thrill of the draft. But the thing is, reeling in the big fish, he can still be involved with that as things get back to normal post-COVID. I don't think we're going to be always doing everything virtually. So I think there's a big free agent. You may, whoever the GM is, may pick up the phone and say, John, hey, you want to help us close this thing? And I'm sure he'll say, hey, happy to do it. Love to. On draft day, if he's around the building, hey, you got a thought on this quarterback, this pass rusher? Sure, love to. I mean, I can think kind of the best case scenario, which would be really cool, is if he over time transitions into a role that Bud Grant has had in Minnesota now for most of the last 35 years. Bud literally still has an office at Vikings headquarters. He pops in from time to time, but when good things happen, he's still around. If the Vikings had won a Super Bowl, he would have gotten a ring. You still get all the gear every year. You still get all the perks and all that. And you're there as a sounding board. And if John transitioned to that sort of role long term and was like that, you guys have seen like professor emerituses at colleges. Mm-hmm. They're 85, 88 years old, but they still have an office and people still kind of ask for their opinion, but they don't have to teach a class every day. That's the sort of thing I could see Elway kind of easing into for the long haul. And some of that may depend on who the owner is, but if it worked out that way, that'd be pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. I think that's exact. I mean, I think what you guys are describing right now is what John Elway's role is going to be this year. I mean, he's not going to have any day-to-day. I think he's going to love stepping back and then being there for the draft and then reeling in the big fish in free agency. That's what he gets this year. And he gets a pretty good paycheck that comes with it. So maybe after this year, he's no longer the president of football operations and it is a senior consultant role. But I think John Elway, no matter who the owner is, I think he's going to have an office there if that's what he wants. Because as Joe Ellis said yesterday in a statement, which was pretty interesting, he said John Elway is single-handedly the most important figure in Denver Broncos history. And to me, I agree with that. I know a lot of people said, wow, already forgetting about Pat Bowlen. And I don't think that's the case at all. But that just shows you that this guy is so important. He's had a hand in every single Super Bowl that the Broncos have won. I mean, the fact that he got them to 7 Super Bowls and 3 championships, that's insane.
Yeah. And, for those who want to discredit Elway's accomplishments that happened when Peyton Manning was around, you could do the same thing to Pat Bowlen because obviously John Elway was here before. So, I'm not a fan of doing that to anyone, but you could do the same thing. And John Elway definitely has a claim to being the most important figure in Broncos history, as does Floyd Little and as does Pat Bowlen. I think everyone, there's a reason why there's a lot of pages in the history book. And I don't even think someone needs to be crowned that. But what I want to talk about now, well, first of all, I want to talk about a metaphor that I thought was very fitting in John Elway's press conference. He was talking about his 7th grandchild being born, and he mentioned how basically that he thought being a grandpa was better than being a parent. And I thought that was the perfect metaphor for exactly what's happening here. He's going from being the parent of the Broncos in the roster to being the grandpa, where he can kind of, pop in for the holidays and the big moments. And he said something along the lines of like, you never have to discipline the grandchildren or something like that. I just thought it was very fitting that on the day of his 7th grandchild being born, he was becoming the grandpa of the Broncos roster.
And that's specifically the 7th. The 7th is fun.
Well, the thing about it, like the equivalent of parental discipline is if you're the GM, you're getting the call at 3 a.m. if a player has gone out and gotten into trouble. Like you're getting that call. This is we're hearing from the Denver PD that insert player's name here had a DUI. You're going to have to deal with this. And you know what? That's never going to happen. No more are you going to have. Remember John Boyette a few years ago?
Was that
Yeah.
the guy who was like in the bushes or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
And when the cops came to him, he told them to call John Elway. John Elway's my boss. That's gone now. He doesn't have to deal with that crap anymore.
That's what I'm going to do if I get in trouble.
I don't think John answered that phone call. That didn't help John.
Oh.
No. Okay. What I did want to talk about, though, is how everything just changed. And that was kind of the big message of the emergency podcast is everything just changed. It'd be funny to just go back and listen to yesterday morning's podcast 24 hours ago. We were literally talking about how stable everything was, how continuity was going to be the word of the offseason, how this the roster wasn't going to change that much, save for a few big free agent decisions. And now we can literally have a conversation about every single player and whether they're safe anymore, which was not the case 24 hours ago. So I want to talk about who you think stock is up, who you think stock is down, and we'll start with the most important one. I think Drew Lock's stock is trending down right now. Now, it's not for any specific reason other than just the fact that there's uncertainty. The stock, people are selling the stock out of a panic a little bit, which is causing the stock to go down a little bit. John Elway is the one who drafted Drew Lock. He's the one who's been, kind of mentoring him on the side, talking to him a lot. There's a connection there. Whereas the new GM is going to come in and not have a connection with Drew Lock. So to me, Drew Lock's stock is down because he doesn't have anything to fall back on now. Everything he does from here, it's going to have to be 100% earned. Now, do I think he can still do it? Do I think he can still be part of the plans? Do I think he can still be maybe part of a quarterback competition and win that job? Yes, I do. But I don't think that that you can say that his stock is trending up for sure with this move.
No, Drew Lock's stock is absolutely trending down with this. The biggest supporters of Drew Lock and believers, dating all the way back to the draft, has been the people inside the Denver Broncos organization. Outsiders could easily come in, guys, and say 16 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, and this was, his second year in the league. I know it was his first year starting, but still, he doesn't get the full rookie excuse here. Yeah, we need to go a different direction. And on top of that, John said yesterday that there's going to be a new GM is not going to have to agree on Drew Lock being the quarterback. He's going to come in, make his own evaluation on everything in the organization, and then make moves from there. So the Broncos aren't going to say to a new GM, Drew has to be your guy. And so I think a new guy is going to come in, and he could also start from scratch and say, okay, this is my team now. And with the most important position in all of sports, I want to go my own direction. So yeah, this was not a good day for Drew.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things going into the process is that there are two things that I think should not be relatively important factors in the GM hire. One is what the GM thinks of Drew Lock. In other words, if a GM says, "Oh, I think Drew Lock's a great quarterback," that's not something that should move the needle on that GM getting the job, because the most important thing is ability to run an organization football wise and personnel acumen. So I wouldn't advise the Broncos to put it as a check mark if the guy says, "Oh, I like Drew Lock," or "I don't like Drew Lock." I think that's actually relatively irrelevant. But what you've done here, though, is create something interesting where Vic Fangio is basically coaching for his job. John Elway was going to be in a contract year, so would have been the easiest thing to run it back with Drew Lock because you've already started the process. Now you have a GM that comes in and they can view things over a 3 and 4 year span. And what that does, I know there's been chat about Matthew Stafford, and I'm sure there may be some inquiries made, but this really brings draft back into the picture, because that GM may say, we're sitting here at 9. This is a 4, maybe a 5 QB draft, depending on what I think of Mac Jones. And we're sitting here in position to either stand pat and have 1 or 2 of them still on the board at 9, or make a reasonable trade up to 2 or 3 if we love Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, or both. A trade that I don't think you're going to be able to make next year, even if Drew Lock fails to launch, because the rest of this team, guys, I think they're 7-9, 8-8 at the worst if they have an average year health-wise in 2021. And it's going to be hard to move up and get into the Keaton Slovis, Sam Howell conversation next year from pick maybe 17 if the year kind of goes 16 or 17 if the year goes the way this year did. So that GM being able to think 2 or 3 years out and how next year's draft might look, may look at this landscape and say, okay, one of these QBs, it's the way to go here. I'm going to go ahead and take him.
Yeah, and that to me is was going to be the next question: is first round quarterbacks, stock up, stock down. I think that is the the hot stock of the day. That's the stock that everyone wants to buy right now. Now, is that the best idea? I don't know, but I totally understand why everyone is saying, hey, I got to get in on some of this first round QB stock all of a sudden, because this GM now is going to come in and be able to get his guy, he's going to be able to say, look, I'm going to be around here a while. I want someone to build my foundation. And the weird thing, though, is how does that work for Vic Fangio? Does Vic Fangio say, like, cool, so then am I not on the hot seat then? Because, if we're building from ground zero with a rookie quarterback, I don't feel very comfortable with having to, go 500 or better next season. There's going to have to be, I think he's going to have to be assured one way or another that this isn't going to sink him in the long run. But I do think a GM could very well come in and say, hey, I think Drew Lock can be the guy. Let's give this a 1-year trial, especially because that GM has a little bit of safety in him. He says, okay, look, I get where you're coming from, Vic. You want to have a more veteran quarterback. So you're all on a 1-year trial, Drew's got 1 year. You've got 1 year. Pat Shurmer's got 1 year too. Show me what you can do. This is your 1-year job interview to continue your time here.
Yeah, and that would be some pressure coming down on both of those guys. And it is a really interesting dynamic and situation that the Broncos are in right now with bringing in a new GM, but not just saying that you're going to keep the coach, saying that you're going to have the coach make the decision and be part of the process of hiring the new general manager. That's why someone with ties to Vic could really make sense for this, because then it's more than just a 1-year test period and Vic feels more comfortable. And then he's able to buy into the general manager's message more of going with a young quarterback or something like that. And another reason why the stock is so much higher on a young quarterback is a new GM may come in here and view this team the way John Elway does. We're just a quarterback away from making the playoffs. I love what I have on offense with Vic on defense and the players they have. I think this could be a playoff team next year with the right quarterback. And so they may say, we're not going to be a top 10 pick in the future. And whether I get Zach Wilson at 9 or whether, they trade up a first and a second round pick to move up to 3, 4, 5 to get that third quarterback off the board. That's something that this new GM could do. And also, guys, it opens the field to any quarterback in this draft outside of Trevor Lawrence. I think we were all a bit skeptical that Justin Fields would be John Elway's sort of guy. Now he's on the board.
Yeah, and let's say, for example, Champ Kelly gets the job. One thing I would be curious about with Champ Kelly is which side of the Bears internal debate he was on back in 2017. Because as John Fox has noted, there were people in the building who really, really wanted Mitchell or Deshaun Watson rather than Trubisky. What kind of quarterback did Champ Kelly like? Was he on John Fox's side or Ryan Pace's side? This is something that I wonder if they'll try to get into in the interviews as they try to peel back the layers on these guys.
That might as well be the determining factor in the interview.
So are you ruling out Lou Riddick because of the things he said on Twitter about really loving Trubisky, really loving Dwayne Haskins back in 2019?
No. So anyone who has done this long enough knows that if you have to share your opinion on on players in the draft, you will be wrong, and you will be wrong a lot. So I'm only kidding when it comes down to Trubisky versus Watson, although that one was really the most obvious one of all time to me. but I liked Dwayne Haskins too. I was wrong about that.
But not more than Kyler.
No, not more than
I know
Kyler.
Riddick liked Haskins more than Kyler, and that's where I'm like, yeah.
Yikes.
So yeah, all these guys have been wrong several times. If there was someone who was always right about quarterbacks in the draft, they would have a new job every other year, and they'd get paid like $100 million to do it. But the thing is, it's really, really difficult to be right about quarterbacks in the draft.
Yeah. That's why you'll get someone like John Dorsey, who it turns out looks like Baker Mayfield was a good call in Cleveland and hit on Patrick Mahomes. Maybe you pay John Dorsey, who's consulting with the Eagles right now. Maybe you pay him $1 million and say, John, who's your quarterback?
Yeah. Or you hire him as your GM and get ready for the chaos that will ensue and tell the cap guy you're sorry and let it ride.
Oh, Dorsey would be great for us.
Yes.
In the media. He'd be phenomenal. I'm not sure he'd be great for the team except for picking a quarterback.
Well, hey, you get the quarterback, and it doesn't matter. I mean, you put Patrick Mahomes on the Jags, and they're going to be just fine.
Yeah, that's very true. Okay, let's move on here. The one that I think is quick we can go through is Vic Fangio. It's a little weird to me, I got to be honest, that we're talking about everything is on the table, although one person is going to be in the interviews who I think should be on the table. You talked about how it shouldn't be a determining factor in the hire whether or not someone likes Drew Lock. I agree. I also think it shouldn't be a determining factor in the hire whether or not someone likes Vic Fangio. And that's going to be kind of hard to do if Vic Fangio is sitting in on the interviews to have an honest conversation about what you think of the head coach.
Do you think Vic leaves the interview at any point?
That would be so awkward.
No, it definitely would. Everyone smiles, and then Vic leaves, and he comes back, and everyone's like, a lot more tempered, and Vic's like, "Oh no, what did I miss?"
It'll be kind of like when you and your girl go on a double date with maybe like your friend and his new girlfriend, right? And she goes to the bathroom, and then everyone's like, all right, so what do you think? What do you think? That's what will happen with Vic. They'll be at Elway's, and, Vic will run to the bathroom, and that's when John will be like, so what do you think of Vic?
Vic's going to have to hold it then. No bathroom trips.
Right, exactly.
But this is a very awkward situation with Vic, because at the end of the day, the GM is going to have the final say. And it seems like John wants to build this like a normal hierarchy, except for right now, this first year, the GM and head coach will be reporting to John. But John has made it clear, both in his statement and when we talked to him, that the GM will have final say on the roster and everything. So I imagine that the GM will be above him. So Vic Fangio is going into these interviews looking for someone that likes him. And it could be a 1-year trial period. Like we said, that's, again, why Champ Kelly would make so much sense, and why, if Vic Fangio has a good relationship with him, which I would imagine he does, would be pounding the table for him, because he may know, okay, I'm probably going to get more than 1 year with Champ.
And you know what? A 1-year trial period, as it were, that might dovetail perfectly with things organizationally for the Broncos, because I would expect that a year from now, we will have either a specific timetable on Brittany Boland becoming the managing partner, or we'll be in the process of getting toward or maybe even on the market with a sale of the team.
Well, and then with that, we're not just talking about, a new head coach. We could be talking about a new GM. And we could be talking about how, John Elway certainly won't be coming back as the president. We could be talking about everything new. So, I mean, yeah, this could be a 1-year trial period for everyone. Let's say this new GM comes in and lights it up and the Broncos are in the playoffs. Well, a new owner's probably not going to come in and fire him. There's still a case that may happen. But let's say the Broncos go 6-10 next year. That new owner is going to have no loyalty to anyone. Yeah,
it's like you compare purchases of teams, for example. The Dallas Cowboys, when Jerry Jones bought them, they were coming off of 3-13 and 3 straight losing seasons. Very easy for Jerry Jones to bring in Jimmy Johnson and tell Tom Landry, you're done, and clean out the brain trust. Landry, Gil Brandt, Tex Schramm, all Hall of Famers, all jettisoned because of bad seasons. But then you look at recently David Tepper in Carolina, And when he bought the team, the issue was ownership and business side. But on the football side, they'd just gone to the playoffs, and Cam Newton looked to still be in his prime. So Tepper chose to kind of sit back, watch for a year and a half on Ron Rivera, watch for 2.5 years on Marty Herney, their GM, and then pulled the trigger on both of them. And so no matter who the new owner is, how much time they get may well depend on this season. If the Broncos go 9-7 and are showing some progress, then that new owner, whoever he or she may be, may say, okay, I'm gonna wait, gonna let these people do their jobs and evaluate. But if it's another 6-10 or 5-11 type of season, then I think it could be pulling the ripcord pretty quickly.
And don't you think, despite the fact that everything truly is up in the air, don't you think that is the best course of action for the new GM? At least I do. Come in and say, okay, look, let's keep continuity in mind. And I think John Elway will be telling the new GM, I really do think that there's value in continuity. I don't think we need a new offensive coordinator. I don't think we need a new head coach, and I don't think we need a quarterback. And I do think the best thing for the new GM to do is just, all right, let me get my eyes on everything for a year here, and then I'll make a decision. Because obviously they're going to be on a 3 to 4 year contract.
Yeah, the GM would, but maybe not Vic. Like if the GM has Vic's ear, Vic might be saying, and this is where Matthew Stafford might come in, or a reasonably big money hedge like a Mariota if he's available, or a Jameis Winston might come in, because Vic might say, yeah, Locke showed some things here, but this is a winner. This is a winner LC. This is make or break. I want to be a little more well covered than I am with just Drew Lock. So get me the best guy that you can who's available on the market, and maybe it's even Sam Darnold as well if you're talking about that young veteran hedge.
Yeah, or Vic may say, get me the rookie, that first round pick, and just make sure that I have a job for more than just this year, and we can work through the growing pains together with the young quarterback. And it's such an interesting dynamic because there's so many things that could fall out from this about just how this new GM approaches this. He could come in and say exactly what you said, Ryan, but he could also come in and say, this team hasn't made the playoffs for 5 years. I don't need to wait and see what's going on. I want to make some changes now. And one thing that's going to be very interesting is Matt Russell's replacement. Is that going to be the new GM's pick? Is that going to be a collaboration? Is it going to be someone within the building that's promoted? Because then if it's the new GM that comes in and gets to pick his own right-hand man, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that, well, then you're kind of getting a whole new segment of people in the building, and it could end up being an us versus them sort of thing.
I don't love the idea of an us versus them, but I do love the idea of a whole new set of ideas and thoughts. You mentioned that Justin Fields doesn't seem like a John Elway guy. I love that I don't know what kind of guy the new guy likes, I don't know if we'll ever find out whether or not Champ Kelly wanted Deshaun Watson or Mitch Trubisky, but I hope we do. And I hope we find out that he wanted Deshaun Watson. And now I can say, oh, so that's his kind of guy. All right, now he's my kind of guy. It's been so long, for Zach and I, the entire time we've covered the team, it's been John Elway. For it's been a decade. It's been a long time since we had fresh ideas in the Broncos front office. And I'm just excited to learn what kind of quarterback is the new GM's kind of quarterback. And
it makes the draft really hard to predict, and that can be a positive if teams don't know what you're going to do. I mean, now the Broncos sitting there at 9, they're kind of a wild card in the top 10 here, and that's pretty exciting. And they have the potential if let's say it's Champ Kelly, and Champ Kelly loved Deshaun Watson. Well, if he loved Deshaun Watson, he might love Justin Fields, because watching that game Friday night in particular, I saw a lot of Watson-like moments from Fields.
Yeah.
Right down to the fact that he rebounded from a bad game. Deshaun had some shaky moments at times at Clemson, but he always did a good job rebounding from them. He showed that resiliency. And I could completely see Champ Kelly looking at the attributes of Fields versus Watson, who I'm sure he did a lot of work on back in 2017, and saying, hey, because of a decision somebody else made, didn't get that kind of guy in 17. I'm not going to make that same mistake again.
Yeah, I love that. I just love it. And, we haven't talked about Justin Fields much on the show since that game. But remember, I said on the show, his stock has been trending down this season. He hasn't been that impressive, but all of that can change in a head-to-head matchup with Trevor Lawrence. And boy, did it. He was a warrior. He made some high-level NFL throws, but he also just made some big throws. And
his toughness, holy cow.
He won over some GMs with that alone, I'm sure.
GMs and coaches, I can see them all watching that game, knowing the injury was playing within men, and they're all saying something old like, yeah, that's a football player right there. I could see Vic looking at Justin Fields and saying, man, that's my kind of guy. Yep.
That was awesome. I'm excited that game happened for Justin Fields because you want more great quarterback play at the top of the draft. It makes the whole thing more exciting. And you're right, the Broncos are now a huge dark horse candidate to do anything in the top 10. No one knows what they're going to do. I guarantee you they'll be throwing out some little leaks of information that they want out there. Maybe it is that the Broncos are very interested in drafting a quarterback, and that could just be a smokescreen because they want someone to trade up and pay a haul to get that pick or something along those lines. So last thing I want to do here on the live side of things, and Zach, do have a chance to change our thoughts here. Mace, on the emergency podcast yesterday, we both gave our predictions as to who will be the GM. So I'll let you start. Who is your prediction? I think I have a guess based on the conversations we've been having today.
Yeah, I think Champ Kelly is the favorite. I think he'll end up getting the job. If I'm calling my shot on one guy, I'd call it on him. I mean, the interesting thing with Adam Peters is he's got multiple suitors now. Champ Kelly's got some interest from the Falcons, but it sounds like the Falcons may be headed more in the Rick Smith direction, another former Broncos executive, although he goes back to the time of Mike Shanahan and Ted Sundquist. But Champ Kelly seems to check a lot of the boxes in terms of background, intelligence, temperament, the fact that he's worked under John Elway. He worked in the Shanahan administration. He worked in the McDaniels administration. He worked in the Elway administration, and he always made his mark, and he was always very well thought of. I think he's somebody that can be a consensus builder in the organization as well. And so that's why I think Champ's going to be the guy standing at the end if I have to call my shot on one of them.
Yeah, I think Champ is a close second. Ryan, I'm sticking with the guy we talked about yesterday, Adam Peters. Just the big time connection with John Elway, I think, is really going to help. But like I said, Champ Kelly is a very close second, and I think he'd be a great hire.
Yeah, I have to say I've reached neck and neck with those guys. Yesterday, my gut feeling told me Adam Peters. And ever since I said that, all that's happening is Adam Peters is here and Champ Kelly has been trending up. And now I think they're right there with each other. So I'll just because of one of my favorite words, anchor bias, I'll stick with Adam Peters for another day. But the trend is definitely Champ Kelly trending up. And I think if you probably asked most people in Broncos country, they'd say he's the favorite right now.
Yeah, and so, I mean, Champ Kelly, keep your eye on him. He's with the Bears right now, and like you said, has been with pretty much every single Broncos regime in the past, 30 years?
Yeah.
25 years, yeah. But did well under all of them. He, originally a Shanahan Sundquist hire, survived through McDaniels, which says a lot about him, and then flourished under Elway working in pro personnel. And his work on the pro personnel side under Elway, tremendous, not only because of the big ticket free agent signings, but one of the things that was among his responsibilities was filling those holes that would open up during seasons. And one of the things that was a tenet of Champ Kelly's time is that late in camp, they're bringing, and even on the waiver wire, they're bringing in guys like Jimmy Leonard, Keith Brooking, Dan Copen. And those were guys that really helped the Broncos out in 2012 into 2013, really filled some holes. So I think that's the kind of thing that's really going to help Champ Kelly's odds.
And you just love a story like that of someone who, has ground their teeth at the lowest levels of that side of things, worked their way all the way up, and potentially become the GM of the team. It's an awesome story, and he's certainly paid his dues and is qualified for the job. So we'll have a close eye on that. If you're watching on YouTube, we'd love if you hit us with a thumbs up. Look at that, a fancy new graphic. Thumbs up, subscribe, sign up for the alerts. That's good stuff right there. But thank you guys for tuning in on the live side of things. We're going to jump over to the podcast side. We'll see you there.